Okay, in the name of Lord Jesus Christ, I speak. We're still on chapter 37. Now, I think, from verse 27 onwards, it talks about how to, depart from evil, right? Now, and obviously, the main point here is about how the righteous will continue to do good in times of persecution. Right now, I want you to read verse 30. The mouth of the righteous speaks wisdom, and his tongue talks of justice. The love of his God is in his heart; none of his steps shall slide. And this is so important. I think if we are righteous, if we're righteous, then whatever comes out of our mouth is always, represents, the wisdom of God, the meaning, the words that we speak would portray, the reverence that we have for God, right? And you find that this is so essential. On the one hand, we preserve ourselves with our words in times of persecution. And on the other hand, you'll find that our words of persecution, our words of wisdom will enable us, to continue to stand firm and strong in the presence of the Lord. Okay. Now, and here the promise is that, none of his steps, the steps of the righteous shall slide, shall slip. Okay. And I think this is the way to deal with difficult situations in life. All right. Now the wicked watches the righteous and seek to slay him. The Lord will not leave him in his hand, nor condemn him when he is judged. Okay. Now, so if God is on our side, then who can oppose us? Now, I think I have shown you the verse already in First Samuel, how God had protected David. Yeah. He did not give him, into the hands of the enemies. Right? Now, so I think the trust in God is important. This trust must be exercised in time of persecution, meaning we must continue to do the right things, regardless of what happens. Okay. Okay, now we read Romans, Romans chapter 8, verse 31. Romans chapter 8, verse 31. What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? Now, God can only be for us if we are righteous. Okay. Now, meaning if we uphold his principle, we do the things that are pleasing to him, that kind of thing, then you realize that God shall be for us. Okay. Now, so no one can go against us. Now, so to maintain God's righteousness in our life is a challenge, and in fact, it's something that we must really ask God for help. We do not want to lose, anything that we have worked for just because we are provoked, but just because we see that things are not going the way that it should be, or unrighteousness is done in the church or whatever. So, if we are not able to maintain a heart of peace, and you find that we can easily slip. Okay, now back to chapter 37. Yeah. Now, so here is another piece of advice I given. Now, wait on the Lord, verse 34, and keep his ways. You see. And he shall exhort you to inherit the land when the wicked are cut off, you shall see it. All right. Now, so, how can I put, waiting on the Lord here is to do the right thing, obviously, speak the right words, fear the Lord and whatever. Okay. And you will see that God will exalt us. Now, exaltation here comes in the form of God's protection and preservation and abidance. All right. Now, and we will even see the end of the wicked. Right? They shall be cut off. Now, and verse 35 is the observation, one of the many observations that David had in his life. Okay, this is what he says. I've seen the wicked in great power and spreading himself like a native green tree. Yet he passed away, and behold, he was no more. Indeed, I sought him, but he could not be found. Right? I think he's using this example to explain the point he made early on. That is in verse 34. I saw from his observation, you see that, a guy can do evil and like, initially maybe continue to flourish, but he cannot, flourish forever. Okay. And here, that's why he said in great power, spreading himself like a native green tree. Right. Now, I think native green tree is like what is that? What do you call it? What kind of tree is that? The most ancient tree in the forest, what do you call it?
Redwood or sequoia?
Sequoia, redwood?
One of them.
So there is a term for it, for native green tree. I can't remember. Just slipped my mind. Do you call it ancient forest or what? No. Okay. Never mind. In native mean is like it's there already. It's like the first one. Okay, native. Okay. All right. But what happened? He cannot last. Even it spread like a native green tree, but it cannot last forever. Okay. Now, verse 37. Mark the blameless man and observe the upright, for the future of that man is peace. Okay, so I think I guess David is teaching us, sometimes we need to be a bit more observant. Trying to pay attention to people who are around us, especially our co-workers, our senior co-workers, those who have been serving God long before we come into the ministry work. All right, so look at the conclusions of their life, and I would say some of them are really good, are very faithful, faithful to the very end. Okay, faithful to the very end. And so the future of that man is peace. Okay, now I think the idea of having peace is, first there must be peace between us and God. Right? Meaning that if there is peace between us and God, it means we do the right things in life, or we have been doing, what is right in the eyes of God, and God is happy about what we have done. Okay, now the next one is, but the transgressors shall be destroyed together. The future of the wicked shall be cut off. Right? The transgressors shall be destroyed altogether. Right, so it's like, it will come that, God shall exercise his judgment on the wicked. It's only a matter of time. It's not that God does not judge the wicked. Yeah. Yes, we may have seen that, wicked man, progress in his life or whatever. It seems that, what he has done is smooth. No, it's not that God does not judge again. We said that, it's only a matter of when, not a matter of if. Okay, now, verse 39, but the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their strength in the time of trouble. And the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them because they trust in him. Now, so the conclusion, for the righteous is always great. And the great reward, for the righteous is salvation. So I guess, no matter how you look at it, how you may be provoked in your ministry work or how you may be wronged by others, falsely accused or whatever, insofar as we hold on, to our relationship with God and continue to do what is righteous, that salvation shall be given to us. Okay, so this is like, the promise of the Lord. Okay, now we move on to chapter 38. We move on to chapter 38. Chapter 38 to me is a penitent psalm written by David. Like what we said before, he has many penitent psalms, and this is one of them. Okay, now so just confirm that first. Now I want you to read verse 3. Verse 3. There's no soundness in my flesh because of your anger, nor any health in my bones because of my sin. And now verse 4. For my iniquities have gone over my head like a heavy burden. They are too heavy for me. My wounds are foul and festering because of my foolishness. Okay. Now, judging from what David is mentioning here, it's quite clear that this psalm is written with the sin he has committed in mind. Okay. Now, so I think one thing good about David is that he is very open, about his own sin, right? And he is able to make it known, to people. Many, in not only in his generation, but also throughout the generations. Anyone who reads the scriptures will know that David has sinned, and he did not hide, his sin from anyone. I think that is his his courage, to face himself, and that is his determination to challenge his own sin, to put his sin away. Okay, I think this is so important for us to learn from as well. Okay, now we divide the chapter. We said, in fact, this is like a stories, and what he has experienced. Okay, never mind. And we said verse 1 to 8, and then 9 to 14, and then 15 all the way to 20 and 21, 22. The last one. Now you can divide your own chapter. Divide into the various sections. Now here he is begging the Lord, 1 to 5, not to what? Not to rebuke him, right? Now, so it's like, and he understands, God's arrows and pierce him deeply, and his hand presses him down. Now, sometimes we ask, why did God do that? Because he sinned, right? And he chastened him in his hot displeasure. Now, when you look at the sufferings of David, after he had sinned against God, I tell you, I don't think many people could bear that kind of suffering. He had to run away from his son, and his own son rose up to trying to kill him, to use up, his kingship. And obviously his son died because, his hair caught in the thickets. And what happened? And he was slaughtered by a general of David. So, okay, now, so I think when you look at the second part of 3 to 5, yeah, you can see the inner person of David at the time after he has sinned, or when the sin that he committed has not been forgiven at the time. All right, you see how much harm sin can do to a person. All right, and we said the spiritual identity of the person is virtually damaged, and not only that, it can also cause a lot of harm to the physical well-being of David as well. Right now, because it's connected, when you know that you have sinned, you're so burdened, within you, and if that burden is not lifted away from you, and it can cause a lot of physical damage to you as well. Okay, now, so, and I guess he admitted his own foolishness. Yeah, no, I think that is so, so commendable. Yeah, in the sense that he was willing to accept full responsibility for what he has done. Okay, now I think the people of the world today would want to shift, the blame onto others. Try to hide, from their sins or whatever. Okay, so we look at verse 6 now, all the way to verse 8. I'm troubled, I'm bowed down greatly, I go mourning all the day long, for my loins are full of inflammation and there's no soundness in my flesh. I'm feeble and severely broken, I groan because of the turmoil of my heart. Now, when you look at verse 6, it begins by saying, I'm troubled. Now, so verse 6, trouble mean I am bent down. Now, when you talk about trouble, the heart feels the problem, if you know what I'm saying. Okay. Now, when you look at verse 8, what does he say? The turmoil of my heart. So when you put this this section into perspective, it means that all this trouble that he had at the time, like mourning, inflammation of the loins, how it is like, I do not really know. And there's no soundness in the flesh, or he was feeling so weak and broken, precisely because the heart is not in a good place, right? And because the heart is so much burdened. Now, I guess we need to understand this, that's why we want God to heal our heart, and if we have done wrong, then confession must be made as quickly as possible. Otherwise we will be weighed down, by the burden of our wrongs or burden of our sin. Right? Now, so I guess, it's such a simple paragraph here we said, and yet it teaches us so much about the heart. So we have to make sure that our heart is right before God. It's so important. It must be right before God. Okay, now verse 9 to verse 10, Lord, all my desire is before you, and my sighing is not hidden from you. My heart pants, my strength fail me. As for the light of my eyes, it also has gone from me. Now, so it's like, he has lost, he lost his desire, everything, it's like he could no longer function properly as a human being. Okay, now, so what when you look at this description here, sometimes we question, what is the point of living on? That's why you find that there are many suicidal cases, in the world today. Particularly if you have, I've read a report, the highest rate of suicide is in Japan, because they're so rich, these people there, I don't know, it's like emptiness or whatever, and so many of them committed suicide. Probably they feel that it's better to die than to live. Now you can imagine, without God, how are we going to solve, this kind of burden in the hearts? Everything is gone. There is no purpose, for anyone to live on. Okay, all right. Now Now, not only that, I want you to look at verse 12. His situation is a bit like Job, all right? Verse 1 and verse 11 and verse 12. My loved ones and my friends stand aloof from my plague, and my relatives stand afar off. Those also who seek my life lay snare for me. Those who seek my hurt speak of destruction and plan deception all the day long. This is the result of sin, I would say, and because he has sinned, and therefore, the burden of the sin, or we said the punishment is severe, is very, very severe. We said it's not, anyone can bear, to be honest. Right? It's not like, when we feel that we need someone to understand, and yet, everyone, not only is far away from us and they begin to turn against us. You can imagine the pain. Sometimes we just want some space, like to relax, to, like we said, to come close to God or whatever. But what happened? These people turn around to go against you, like would not leave you alone, would just want to pile up more pressure on you, that kind of thing, right? And you feel very helpless. And this is the experience that David had, okay? All right, now, how did he try to resolve the issue? I feel that this one is connected to chapter 39 as well. Yeah, when we come to chapter 39, I will explain a bit more. Now, when you look at verse 13, but I, like a deaf man, do not hear, and I am like a mute who does not open his mouth. Now, when you look at chapter 39, I was mute with silence, I held my peace even from good, and my sorrow was stirred up. So very similar, very identical, all right? Now, so it's like he is trying every possible means, to stop himself from sinking deep into his own sorrow, okay? Now, so thus I am like a man who does not hear, and in whose mouth is no response, trying to control himself. What can you say? Yeah, when a wrong is done, yeah, and people has found out, if people has proof or whatever, to go against you, what can you say? You can't do anything. You just keep quiet. Is that not true? All right, and you can't open your mouth. You can't open your mouth. So you find that this is so difficult for him. It's not just about how can I say his son, going against him. You can see, look at the turmoil of his heart throughout. Right? This is a very good description of the entire story of David after he has sinned against God. And that is the consequence he has to face. All right, now in verse 15, for in you, O Lord, I hope you will hear, O Lord my God. Now the good thing about David is that he clung on to the Lord. He didn't want, he is clinging on firmly on the Lord. He didn't want him to live. Okay? And for Isaiah, hear me, lest they rejoice over me, lest when my foot slip, they exalt themselves against me. All right, so he was in desperation. And sometimes, we wonder, how is it that a person who is so much, loved by God would go through this level of suffering? Again, you see the righteousness of God and the justice of God. God does not show partiality. If a person has done wrong, yes, he may confess his sin, but he still has to bear the consequence of, his choice, right, of his sin. Okay, the fairness of God is clearly demonstrated here. Now, so you find that to a point, when you look at verse 17, say, "Oh, I'm ready to fall, and my sorrow is continually before me." Okay, if you are a brother to David, you'll be heartbroken to see your brother in this way. you won't know how to encourage him. That's why I think sometimes we need to appreciate. We need to understand if a person has sinned and he has truly repented of his sin. And then I guess we need to show some understanding, if you know what I'm saying. It's not saying that we agree with the sin that he has done or whatever. I guess we need to give the person, some room to repent and to come close before God, right? By himself. Okay, now, sometimes a person is completely destroyed in faith, and not because of the sin. Sometimes the sin might have been forgiven, but because of people around him who keep talking about him, keep pressurizing him, keep attacking him, criticizing him, and to the point that he is ready to fall. All right? Now, verse 18, for I will declare my iniquity, I will be in anguish over my sin. Right? And this is his truthfulness. Now, but my enemies are vigorous and they are strong, and those who hate me wrongfully have multiplied. And those also who render evil for good, they are my adversaries, because I follow what is good. Now, so you find that this thing is entangled with many other issues as well. Yes, he has done wrong, and because of that, those who hate him, multiply for no reasons. And you find that here it said, I follow what is good. Okay. Now, aside from the incident that he has committed sin, you find in the life of David, he is almost good, I would say. All right. He followed whatever the Lord said. Now, but his adversaries will continue to pound on him, to go against him. Right? Now, so this is his life. And verse 21 and 22, he said, do not forsake me, O Lord, O my God, be not far from me. Make haste to help me, O Lord, my salvation. Now, when you look at the last verse of the next chapter is almost identical as well. Yeah, remove your gaze from me that I may regain strength before I go away and no more. All right. Now, so it's like begging God. You're begging God to do something about his situation. Okay. Now we move on to verse 39. All right. Now, so we can divide the chapter according to Selah, all right, verse 5, and then 6 to verse 11, and then the last two verses, all right, okay, because Selah appear. Now, I think, like what I said before, when you look at the chapter 39, there are some similarities to the previous chapter, right? So it's just like David wanted to shut his ears, he did not want to listen, to all the gossip, all the criticism, but he could not escape it. Right now, all right. Now, I think this chapter is I find that it's so useful to us, especially when we feel that we are being wrong, we are being attacked, and this is the thing that we need to bear in mind, in overcoming the battle, I would say, in our mind, right? Many battles are fought, not in the physical sense, is in the mind, right? It's in the mind actually. Okay, now I want you to look at the first few verses first. I said, I will guard my ways, lest I sin with my tongue. All right. Now, David knew very well that he must not, utter words which are prohibitive, which are offensive against God. Okay, or words that God did not take delight in. Okay. Now, so he's very aware of that. That's why here it says, he will restrain his mouth with a muzzle. Now, muzzle is like, use that for what? To do what? Why do you need a muzzle for? I'm not sure, in the US, in the UK, some people, they have this pet dogs, they're like pit bull, very fierce dog. They use a muzzle to make sure that when they walk the dog around, they will not end up biting people. Okay, now so it said, while the wicked are before me, all right, this is what he did. All right, he in fact, he's like he told himself that this is what he would do. All right, if he were to be in the presence of the wicked, what would he do? He would restrain his mouth with a muzzle, meaning he must make sure that his mouth are tightly sealed up. Right, his lips are tightly sealed up so that he would not say words against God. Now, so here, this is like his experience, right? His experience. Okay, I was mute with silence. I held my peace even from good, and my sorrow was stirred up. Okay, now, if you want to keep your mouth shut, meaning in front of wicked people, you don't want to say anything against God. It's not by saying that, okay, I will bite my tongue so that I won't say a word, whatever. This actually does not help. You know why? Because if the heart is stirred up, you cannot control. Or sooner or later, you find that words of malice or even wickedness will come out from our mouth, or even will just like spring up, in our mind. You know what I'm saying? Now, so you find that this is his experience, and his sorrow was stirred up in verse 2. Now, and then he said, my heart was hot within me while I was musing. Okay. The fire burned, and I spoke with my tongues. Now, while I was musing, while I was meditating, what did he meditate about? The problem, the words that people have spoken about him. Or sometimes we find that our mind is so tricky, because when we are in a situation of being attacked, every words that people spoke, we will look at it in a very different way, thinking that the guy is coming at me again, even though the intention may not be so. All right, now, so therefore you find that he began to speak with his tongue. Now, what did he do? Thankfully, when he started talking, he's not talking to himself, no, he spoke against these people. And verse 4 is the prayer. So he began to speak with the tongue, but in prayer. Right? And that's why he said, Lord, make me to know my end and what is the measure of my days, that I may know how frail I am. Right? Indeed, you have made my days as handbreadth, and my age is as nothing before you. Certainly every man at his best state is but vapor. Now, so you find that the content of his prayer is so amazing, because it's like it is completely detached from the situation. What he is praying about is to ask God to help him understand the shortness of his life. Now, we know that, we have been given the knowledge that life is short, it's fragile. Okay. Now, how is it that here he still wanted to pray so that he could understand? When a person is not in trouble, the shortness of life, it cannot be true from the heart. It is merely a form of knowledge. But when I truly feel that life is so short, right, from within my heart, then you find that my thinking will be different, right? Will be very different. I will try to do whatever I can to make sure that my life, would be one that is pleasing in the eyes of God. Okay. Now, so from verse 4 onward, he spoke to God. He's not talking to man anymore. I think this is so wonderful about this person here. Right? I think it's a great example to emulate. Right? Now, so certainly every man at his best state is but vapor. No matter how good you may be, how much church work you have done, when you are in the ministry or whatever. Right? Now, in the eyes of God, it's so quick it vanishes. Okay. Now, I want you to read the verse. Okay, we read chapter 62. Now we read Psalms chapter 62, verse 9. Now surely men of low degree are a vapor, men of high degree are a lie. If they are weighed on the scale, they are altogether lighter than vapor. All right, so I think when you look at vapor, it's nothing, right? It appears only for a short while and then it vanishes. Right, so this is the idea, and David has come to realize, how short his life is. All right, now, so I think it's so important for us to understand this is what we should, ask God to help us to see the shortness of our life, especially in times of provocation. All right, now, why should we pray in this manner? So that if you know that life is so short, you won't have time to retaliate. You won't want to hit back at the person who has spoken ill against you. You won't want to waste your energy on these things anymore. You just want to do what is right, what is pleasing in the eyes of God. That's the way. Okay. Now we look at verse 6, all the way to verse 11. Surely every man walks about like a shadow. Surely they busy themselves in vain. He heaps up riches and does not know who will gather them. Now, here it talks about those who do not really know God. Yeah. And I think we have seen this in chapter 17 already. Yeah. In chapter 17. And when we come to chapter, I guess, 50, no, not 50. 49, the same idea is also portrayed here. Well, when we come to this chapter, we'll talk a bit more about it. Okay, but for now, we can look at one or two verses in chapter 49. Okay, now we read verse 12, and then we read also verse 20, all right, verse 20. Now that he should continue to live eternally and not, nevertheless, man, though in honor, does not remain. He is like the beast that perish. Okay, now verse 20, a man who is in honor yet does not understand is like the beasts that perish. Yeah, no, short-lived, very short. Just like a shadow, it goes away. Okay. Now we're back to chapter 39. Now, I want you to look at verse 9 first, yeah? Verse 9, and compare this with verse what? Verse 1, yeah? Verse 2, yeah? Okay, now we compare the two verses and see what conclusion can we get, yeah? Now, verse 9 is that I was mute, I did not open my mouth because it was you who did it. Okay, now when you look at verse 2, I was mute with silence, I held my peace even from good, and my sorrow was stirred up. Now, so, and you find that he cannot say anything against God, yeah, because it was God who did it. Why did God do this to him? Because he has sinned, right? So he can't say anything, he can't argue, yeah, against God. Now, the only thing that he can do, obviously, is to ask God to remove the suffering that he was in. Yeah, it's like he was very honest to tell God that, like the wrath of God is like burning him up. It's consuming him altogether. Right? Now, I think, this is the suffering when he sinned against God. Now, verse 11, when with rebuke you correct man for iniquity, you make his beauty melt away like a moth. Surely every man is vapor, right? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so you find that, yeah, verse 11 and verse 5, yeah, it both verses end with the idea of being a vapor. It's merely a vapor, right? Or merely vapor. All right. So I think he has understood in life pretty well, especially after he has gone through this kind of punishment or chastisement from God. Right? Now we back to verse 7 and verse 8, yeah? And now, Lord, what do I wait for? My hope is in you. Deliver me from all my transgression. Do not make me the reproach of the foolish. Now, so I think the struggle is so real, God, please help me, help me, help me. Forgive my sin, my sin. Right? That is, David's suffering, all right? David's suffering. Now, that's why I want to mention one thing. The great thing about this chapter is, the first part. He was able to control himself. When he felt that he could no longer control himself, he prayed to God. Okay. Now, verse 12 and verse 13. Yeah, verse 12 and verse 13. Now, hear my prayer, O Lord, and give ear to my cry. Do not be silent at my tears, for I am a stranger with you, a sojourner, as all my fathers were. Remove your gaze from me, that I may regain strength before I go away and am no more. And so it's like begging God. So, the suffering is because of his sin. God, help me, help me, help me. And he has become so frail and so, feeble, and because of the sin that he has committed, and people would not let him go, and because people have found, reasons to attack him, Okay. All right. So this is the chapter. Yeah. Now we move on to the next one, and again, this is written by David. We want to divide the chapter first into a few sections, 1 to 5, and then 6 to 10, 6 to 12, yeah, and then 13 to the end of the chapter. Now 1 to 5, 6 to 12, 1 to 5, 6 to 12, and then 13 to 17. Okay, 13 to 17. Now there is no superscription given, and is again it's just a psalm, yeah, written by David. I guess it's pretty similar to many of the psalms that we have studied already. Yeah? Okay, it's basically asking God for help. All right, we shall go through them anyway. Go through this chapter. Now here it says, yeah, he waited for the Lord patiently, and God is also a God who listened, yeah, to his cry, and how God has saved him from a horrible situation. And in this case, I think in verse 2 he says, he also brought me up out of a horrible pit, right, and the murky clay, and set my feet upon a rock and established my steps. Okay, now, so this is his experience, all right? So although he had been through so much, and he felt that God had never left him, had never left him. Now, he has put a new song in my mouth, meaning, he was given a strength, power to sing to God and praise God. And okay. All right. Now we move on to verse 4. Yeah? Blessed is that man who makes the Lord his trust and does not respect the proud, nor such as turn aside to lies. Yeah. Now, so here he is saying that trusting God is the source of blessing, and and God shall continue with the person. All right. Now to trust in God in this context here, he has given two example. One is, not to respect the proud, nor turn aside to lies. Okay, and this is trusting in God. All right, do the right things. All right, that's the idea. Okay, now I want you to look at verse 5. Yeah. Many, O Lord my God, are your wonderful works which you have done, and your thoughts towards us cannot be recounted to you in order. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. Okay, now so it's like he is saying that the grace of God is so abundant, is so abundant that he could not really number them one by one, to talk about them, one by one. And so I guess, he is a man who really, remember all the wonderful deeds that God has done to him. Now, I guess this is also a way to help ourselves to be lifted up in a difficult situation. We must learn to recount, the grace of God, before him, right? Or recount it to God in order, all the blessing that we have received. Now, you'll find that, again, I just want to let you know, this idea actually is also scattered in quite many passages in the book of Psalms. Now, in the book of Psalms, since we are talking about it, I just show you the verses that I have found or that I have read before. Now, I want you to read the Psalms, the book of Psalms 103. We read verse 2, yeah? Okay, blessed the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. Okay, now what are the benefits? The following verses, yeah, tell us what his benefits are. Okay, Psalms, the book of Psalms 103, verse 2 talks about the benefits that David has received from God: forgiveness of sin, healing of diseases, being redeemed from destructions, and being crowned with loving kindness and tender mercies, and also being satisfied with good things. And the important thing is, that your youth is renewed like the eagles. All right, these are the benefits. You can see how mindful God is, or how, these are the wonderful works. All right, now why so I want you to read Psalm 116. Psalm 116. We read verse 12. Verse 12. Now, what shall I render to the Lord for all his benefit towards me? Now, I will take up the cup of salvation and call upon the name of the Lord. Now, so, it's like if you piece all these verses together, then you can come to the conclusion that, when a person truly understands the benefit that he has received from God, then these are the things that he would do. Right? And he will take up the cup of salvation and call upon the name of the Lord. And we said he will repay his grace, in our context, by serving him full time in a more significant capacity. Okay, so this is 116 verse 12. Now we look at 137 verse 9. Yeah. Verse 7. Yeah. Now, where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend into heaven, 17. 139 verse 17. Now, how precious also are your thoughts to me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, there would be more in number than the sand. When I awake, I'm still with you. Okay, now so this idea is scattered in quite many passages in the book of Psalms. All right, so I think it's important, yeah, I would say that to bear it in mind. All right, to bear it in mind. Okay. I just want to come back to chapter 40 first. All right, chapter 40. Now we look at verse 6, yeah, to verse 8. Sacrifice and offering you did not desire. You did not desire. My ears you have opened. Burnt offerings and sin offering you did not require. You know. Now, what is he saying? Because in the middle it said, my ears you have opened. Sacrifice and offering you did not desire. Okay. Burnt offering and sin offering you did not require. Meaning what is he trying to say here? It's like God has spoken this to him. All right? Now, so what is important here is verse 7 and verse 8, and this is what he said. You know, my ears you have opened. Now, meaning he must have heard what is recorded in the law. That is in verse 7 and verse 8. Then I said, behold, I come in the scroll of the book. It is written of me. I delight to do your will, oh my God. And your law is within my heart. Okay. Now, I guess this can actually be found in the book of Hebrews, right? The book of Hebrews, yeah, like chapter 10, you know, verse 5 to verse 9. Okay. Now, so obviously this is about Jesus Christ, all right? This is about Jesus Christ. Now, so I think in the case of David, yeah, you know, what God really wants to see in David is his actions of keeping the will of God or acting out the will of God. That is what God wants to see. That's why sometimes you see in certain passages of the Bible is that God is more interested, you know, in like faithfulness, mercy, and faith. Right? Not saying that he's not interested in some of the religious act. All right, you know, you need to have this actions. You know, you need to practice a certain rituals. You know, in our Christian life, like we go to church. You know, we have fellowship, that kind of thing. Right? Okay. So I think this verse 6 to verse 8. Right. I guess we take a break first. We come back.